In the dense, whispering forests of the Pacific Northwest, where the fog clutches the ancient trees like a lingering ghost, there lies a small, almost forgotten town named Whispering Pines. It's a place where time seems to move at its own pace, where the modern world feels like a distant, fleeting dream. The townsfolk speak of the woods with a mix of reverence and fear, for they hold secrets darker than the night itself. The disappearing cabin, Jenny and her friends, thrill seekers and adventure enthusiasts, had heard the tales of the old woods, but dismissed them as mere stories to keep curious kids away. They set out to explore, to find the rumored cabin that was said to appear only under the full moon's light. As they delved deeper into the forest, a chilling fog descended, and an eerie silence enveloped them, swallowing even the sound of their own footsteps. They found the cabin, or rather, it found them. It stood there, a silhouette against the moonlit night, windows like dark, watching eyes. The door creaked open on its own, inviting or perhaps daring them to enter. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and old, whispered secrets. The cabin seemed to breathe, its walls pulsating slightly, as if alive. As they explored the decrepit interior, they found old, tattered journals speaking of an ancient presence in the woods. A predator not of flesh and bone, but of shadow and fear, that hunted not for sustenance, but for sport. The entries ended abruptly with a scrawled warning that reading the words aloud would invite the predator's gaze. Laughing off the warning as part of the thrill, Jenny read the last entry aloud. The air turned cold, and a suffocating darkness filled the cabin, snuffing out their lights. Whispers echoed, as if the very forest was speaking, and a chilling realization dawned upon them. They were not alone. In the panic, they fled the cabin, but the woods had changed, or perhaps they had changed, for the familiar path was gone, replaced by an endless labyrinth of twisted trees and impenetrable darkness. The feeling of being watched, hunted, grew with every desperate turn they took. The story breaks here, leaving questions unanswered. What is the true nature of the predator in the woods? How does the cabin fit into the dark history of Whispering Pines? The readers are left hanging, pondering the fate of Jenny and her friends, the eerie cabin, and the ancient, unspeakable horror that lurks in the heart of the forest. As the first light of dawn struggled to pierce the dense canopy of Whispering Pines, the forest seemed to recoil, its shadows deepening in defiance of the encroaching day. The eerie calm of the morning belied the terror that had unfolded in the darkness. The fate of Jenny, Mark, Sarah, and their friends entwined with the malevolent heart of the forest. The ritual of shadows. In the depths of the forest, where no light dared to linger, Jenny found herself standing before the ancient, gnarled tree, its presence overwhelming, suffocating. The shadow that had risen from the pond now took a more defined form, a silhouette of pure darkness, its edges flickering like the flames of an unseen fire. It spoke in a voice that was both a whisper and a scream, a language that twisted the mind, promising truths hidden in madness. Jenny, driven by a terror-fueled curiosity, listened as the entity spoke of an ancient ritual, one that bound the forest to the shadow realm, a pact that demanded a tribute of fear and despair. The faces in the pond, she realized, were the lost souls, trapped in a perpetual nightmare, their terror feeding the forest's dark heart. Mark's transformation. Mark, ensnared in the thorn maze, found himself before the decayed figure on the playground, its eyes now mirrors reflecting his deepest fears. The laughter had ceased, replaced by a silence that throbbed in his ears. The figure reached out, its touch cold, ethereal, and as their hands met, Mark felt a searing pain, not of the flesh, but of the soul. The playground around him twisted, the sky above swirling into a vortex of dark clouds. The figure, now a part of him, whispered of a forgotten time when the forest was young and its hunger insatiable. Mark, now a vessel for the forest's will, saw the world through a veil of shadows, each tree, each leaf imbued with a sinister purpose. Sarah's descent. In the heart of the cave, Sarah stood on the edge of the abyss, the heartbeat growing louder, more insistent, compelled by a force beyond her understanding. She stepped into the void, her fall a slow descent into an endless night. Around her, whispers coalesced into tangible forms, spirits of the ancient worshippers, their bodies adorned with symbols of a bygone era. As she descended, the darkness embraced her, a mother's comfort and a predator's snare. The chamber below revealed a vast, underground cathedral, its architecture alien, twisted by the same dark forces that shaped the forest above. At its center, an altar, and upon it, a tome bound in shadows, its pages a tapestry of nightmares, each word a summoning of the forest's ancient guardians. The unseen threads. As the day broke fully, the forest seemed to settle, a beast sated for the moment. But the peace was an illusion, a brief respite in the eternal cycle of hunger and fear. Jenny, Mark, Sarah, and their friends, now deeply entwined in the forest's dark tapestry, found themselves standing at the threshold of a deeper, more ancient horror, their wills bending to the inexorable pull of the shadows. The forest, a living entity, had woven them into its story, a narrative written in the blood and fear of countless lost souls. As they looked upon the world with new eyes, the line between predator and prey blurred, their humanity slipping away like shadows at dawn. The story lingers here, on the edge of revelation, the horror of whispering pines growing deeper, more intricate, a living nightmare from which there is no waking. The forest waits, patient and eternal, its hunger deep and insatiable, a tale of terror forever to be continued, its darkest secrets yet to be unveiled. In the eerie silence that followed the dawn, the forest of whispering pines seemed to breathe, its every exhale a whisper of the night's horrors. The ancient trees, witnesses to the unfolding nightmare, stood silent, their branches heavy with secrets. Jenny, Mark, Sarah, and their friends, now irrevocably changed, stood at the precipice of an unfathomable abyss, their fates intertwined with the dark heart of the forest, the labyrinth of mirrors. Jenny, her mind a whirlpool of the entity's whispered promises and warnings, stumbled upon a clearing she had not seen before. In the center, a structure unlike any other in the forest rose. A labyrinth constructed of mirrors, each reflecting not the forest, but distorted visions of their own fears, twisting and magnifying them into grotesque caricatures. The entity's voice, now a constant murmur in her mind, urged her to enter, to confront the darkest parts of her soul. With each step, the reflections grew more terrifying, showing her not only what she feared, but what she could become. Faces of her friends, twisted in agony, appeared and vanished, their eyes pleading for an end she could not provide. The deeper she ventured, the more the boundary between reality and reflection blurred, until she could no longer tell if she was navigating the labyrinth or if the labyrinth was navigating her. Mark's descent into shadow. Mark, now a conduit for the forest's ancient will, found himself before a vast, gaping chasm that split the forest floor, its depths shrouded in impenetrable darkness. The thorn maze had marked him, its venom coursing through his veins, transforming his perception of the forest. He could see the lifelines of every living thing, a network of pulsating energy, and he understood that the chasm was not a scar upon the earth, but a mouth waiting to be fed. Compelled by an insatiable curiosity and the dark influence within him, Mark approached the edge. The ground beneath him whispered in the old language of the forest, a symphony of voices that was both horrifying and captivating. As he peered into the abyss, the darkness peered back, an invitation to embrace his true nature and descend into the heart of the forest's ancient power. Sarah's binding. Sarah, within the subterranean cathedral, found herself drawn to the shadow-bound tome on the altar. The whispers of the ancient worshippers filled her ears, not as distinct voices, but as a collective chant, urging her to open the tome. With each page turned, the shadows in the cathedral grew thicker, coalescing into forms both familiar and alien, a pantheon of the forest's guardians, their eyes glowing with a baleful light. As she read from the tome, her voice not her own, the ground trembled, and the ancient markings on the walls began to glow with an eerie luminescence. The spirits around her knelt, and she realized the ritual she had unwittingly begun was binding her to the forest, making her a vessel for its will, a bridge between the shadow realm and the world of light. The convergence. As night began to fall once again, a palpable sense of anticipation filled the air. The forest, alive with the energy of the unfolding rituals, seemed to be preparing for a convergence, a moment when the boundaries between worlds would blur, and a new order would be birthed from the chaos of the night. Jenny, lost in the labyrinth of mirrors. Mark, standing on the brink of the abyss. And Sarah, bound to the altar in the subterranean cathedral, found themselves at the heart of this convergence, their actions guided by forces beyond their understanding. The forest of whispering pines, a sentinel of ancient and unspeakable power, watched and waited, its hunger insatiable, its secrets buried deep within the shadowed groves. The story of the forest and its unwilling acolytes eyelids open, a tale of terror and wonder that stretches into the shadows, ever waiting, ever whispering, for the next soul to wander into its embrace. As the shadows lengthened and the forest of whispering pines braced for the night, the air itself seemed thick with anticipation. The rituals set in motion by Jenny, Mark, and Sarah were converging, drawing upon the ancient energies that lay dormant beneath the gnarled roots and twisted vines. Jenny's reflection. In the heart of the mirror labyrinth, Jenny faced her final reflection, a distorted image that blurred the lines between her humanity and something far more sinister. The mirror did not simply reflect. It revealed, peeling back the layers of her soul, exposing the darkness within. The entity's whispers became a roar, promising her power beyond measure. If only she would embrace the darkness. Around her, the mirrors began to fracture, the cracks spreading like spiderwebs, each shard reflecting not her image, but glimpses of otherworldly landscapes, realms of shadow and despair where the entity reigned supreme. Mark's ascension. On the edge of the abyss, Mark felt the pull of the void below, a call to step into the unknown and become one with the ancient power of the forest. The ground beneath him pulsed with a dark energy, a heartbeat that synchronized with his own. As he stepped forward, the abyss welcomed him, its darkness enveloping him in a cold embrace. He descended, not as a man, but as an avatar of the forest's will, his very essence intertwining with the roots and soil, his consciousness spreading across the network of life that thrummed beneath the surface. Sarah's covenant, bound to the altar in the cathedral's depths. Sarah completed the ritual, her voice echoing in the cavernous space, a chant that was both a surrender and a command. The shadows around her solidified, forming a council of ancient guardians, their forms both magnificent and terrifying. They acknowledged her as the bridge between their realm and the mortal world, bestowing upon her the knowledge of the old ways, a covenant sealed in shadow. The tome before her glowed with an eldritch light, its pages turning of their own accord, revealing secrets that mankind was not meant to know. The veil thins. As the rituals reached their zenith, a palpable shift occurred in the fabric of reality. The boundaries that separated the mortal world from the realms of shadow and ancient power began to thin, the veil fluttering like a torn curtain in the wind. The forest of whispering pines, now a nexus of eldritch energy, pulsed with a life of its own. Its whispers no longer just voices, but commands that shaped the very essence of the woods. In the town of Whispering Pines, the townsfolk felt a chill that went beyond the descending night, an instinctual fear of the darkness that crept at the edges of their homes, whispering promises of oblivion and rebirth. The forest called to them, a siren song that was both beautiful and terrible, drawing them towards its heart, where the rituals awaited their final, unseen participants. As the night deepened, the story of Whispering Pines remained untold, its chapters written in the shadows between the stars, a narrative of terror and wonder that beckoned to be continued. The fate of Jenny, Sarah and the forest itself hung in the balance, a tail suspended in the twilight, waiting for the dawn that might never come. As the night descended once more over whispering pines, an eerie calm settled over the forest. The convergence was imminent, the veil between the worlds thinning, as Jenny, Mark, and Sarah found themselves enmeshed in the ancient, dark rituals of the forest. The entity, the chasm, and the shadow-bound tome were not merely tests or trials. They were keys to unlocking a door that should have remained forever closed. The final ritual. In the heart of the labyrinth, Jenny faced her final reflection, a version of herself devoid of fear, compassion, or humanity. It whispered of a world beyond the mirrors, where shadows reigned supreme, and she could be a queen. The temptation was immense, but a flicker of her true self remained, a beacon in the consuming darkness. With a shattering scream, she broke the mirror before her, the labyrinth crumbling around her, the shards of glass reflecting not distorted fears, but the breaking of the spell that had held her. At the edge of the chasm, Mark felt the pull of the abyss, an urge to leap into the darkness and become one with the forest's ancient hunger. But as he stood there, on the brink of oblivion, he remembered the laughter of his friends, the warmth of the sun, the life beyond the shadows. With a defiance born of these memories, he stepped back from the chasm, the ground sealing shut as if the forest itself was relenting, the voices of the thorns fading into silence. Deep within the underground cathedral, Sarah, surrounded by the spectral worshippers and the ancient guardians, realized the tome was not a conduit of power, but a chain, binding her to the will of the forest. As she spoke the final words of the ritual, she infused them with her own will, her own essence, turning the binding upon itself. The shadows recoiled, the spirits dissipated, and the tome crumbled to dust, the cathedral shaking as if in the throes of an earthquake, the path to the surface revealing itself to her once more. The dawn of whispering pines. As dawn broke, the first light in years to truly touch the heart of the forest, Jenny, Mark, and Sarah found each other amidst the ancient trees. They were changed, marked by their ordeal, but alive. The forest around them was silent, respectful, as if acknowledging their victory, or perhaps biding its time. They walked out of whispering pines together, the forest receding behind them, its whispers fading, but never fully silenced. They knew they were leaving part of themselves behind, that the forest had woven itself into their very beings, a dark thread in the tapestry of their lives. Whispering Pines remains, a place of beauty and terror, its secrets hidden in the shadows. The story of Jenny, Mark, and Sarah ends here, but the forest's story continues, ever waiting for the next soul brave or foolish enough to wander its shadowed paths. The end, or perhaps just a new beginning. Title: Whispers from the Ashen Grove. As the saga of Whispering Pines fades into the echoes of the haunted night, a new tale emerges from the depths of the Ashen Grove, a place whispered about in the dying embers of campfires, where the ground is covered in a perpetual layer of ash, and the trees are charred skeletons of a forgotten pyre, the forsaken village, miles away from the enigmatic terror of whispering pines. The ashen grove holds its own dark secrets. At its heart lies the remnants of a village, its buildings and structures consumed by fire long ago, leaving only blackened ruins and the memory of despair. The villagers, it is said, had meddled with forbidden rituals, seeking to harness the power of the earth itself, only to unleash a fiery maelstrom that reduced everything to cinders. The arrival of the unwary. A group of documentary filmmakers, intrigued by the legends surrounding the Ashen Grove, venture into its heart, seeking to uncover the truth behind the tales of sudden inferno and the village's subsequent abandonment. Armed with cameras and a naive courage, they find themselves in a landscape where every step kicks up clouds of ash, and the air carries the scent of ancient smoke. As they explore the ruins, the silence is oppressive. The only sound their footsteps and the occasional crackle of disturbed ash. The village, or what's left of it, seems frozen in time, a monument to its own destruction. Among the ruins, they find an artifact, an ancient tome, its pages filled with rituals and incantations, the ink still vibrant against the ashen backdrop. The stirring below. As night falls, the grove reveals its true nature. The ground beneath them begins to warm, a subtle vibration that grows in intensity. Whispers fill the air, not of the wind through dead branches, but of voices chanting in an unrecognizable tongue. The air shimmers with heat, and the filmmakers realize too late that the fire that consumed the village never truly died. It merely slept, waiting for a catalyst to awaken it once more. One of the filmmakers, driven by a reckless curiosity, reads aloud from the tome, the words seeming to ignite the very air around them. Flames flicker to life in the ruins, not consuming, but coalescing, forming shapes that mimic human forms. The spirits of the villagers bound to the site of their demise. Their whispers, a warning too late heeded. The Ashen Guardians. As the flames grow, so too does the realization that the fire is sentient, a guardian of the grove, punishing those who dare to uncover its secrets. The filmmakers find themselves trapped, the grove transformed into a labyrinth of fire, its paths shifting and treacherous. In the heart of the village, a larger flame takes shape, towering and imposing, its core a swirling mass of fire and ash. It speaks in a voice that is the crackle of fire and the roar of a blaze, recounting the village's hubris and the price of their folly. The filmmakers, their equipment abandoned, their courage turned to ash, listen in horror as the Guardian reveals their fate, bound to the grove as a warning to others. The unending cycle. As dawn approaches, the flames recede, leaving no trace of their presence, save for the increased layer of ash on the ground. The grove remains silent, its secrets buried once again beneath the ashen remains of the past. The fate of the filmmakers, like that of the villagers before them, becomes another layer in the grove's dark history. A tale whispered on the winds, a cautionary story of the price of curiosity and the unyielding guardianship of the Ashen Grove. The story of the Ashen Grove remains open, its heart a flickering flame of mysteries untold, a reminder of the thin line between the pursuit of knowledge and the precipice of damnation, forever waiting for the next whisper to stir its embers into a raging inferno. As the shadows of whispering pines stretched and intertwined, weaving a tapestry of darkness, the forest seemed to pulsate with an unseen heartbeat, a rhythm that resonated with the ancient rituals unfolding within its heart. The air was charged with a primal energy, a force that blurred the lines between the physical world and the realm of shadows. Jenny's reflection. Within the labyrinth of mirrors, Jenny's journey became a psychological ordeal. Each reflection now a window into alternate realities, where her choices led to different, often horrifying outcomes. The entity's voice, ever present, whispered of a convergence, a point where all realities could merge, offering her power beyond her wildest dreams, or a descent into madness. The mirrors no longer reflected her image, but showed her the faces of those she loved, each twisted by fear or lost in realms of shadow, their fates tied to her decisions. Mark's awakening. At the edge of the abyss, Mark felt a transformation within him. The thorn's venom and the forest's will merging with his essence, altering him in ways he could not comprehend. The abyss called to him, not a void, but a gateway, filled with the swirling energies of uncounted worlds. As he stepped forward, he realized he was not falling, but becoming part of the forest's vast consciousness, his individuality fading into a collective existence, his fears and desires mingling with those of the forest itself. Sarah's covenant, bound to the ancient altar. Sarah felt the shadows envelop her, not as captors, but as protectors, whispering the secrets of the forest, of life and death, of creation and destruction. The tome before her pulsed with a dark light, its pages turning of their own accord, revealing a covenant written in the language of the shadows, a promise of a new dawn for the forest, a rebirth through her. With each word she spoke, the ground vibrated, and the spirits around her swirled in a dance of ancient rituals, heralding the coming of the forest's true avatar. The veil thins. As the rituals reached their zenith, the fabric of reality within Whispering Pines thinned, the barriers between worlds weakening. The forest, alive with anticipation, prepared to usher in an era where the shadows would walk the earth, and its will would shape the destiny of all who dwelled within its reach. In the heart of the forest, a convergence of energies illuminated the night, a beacon calling to the lost, the curious, and the brave. The stories of Jenny, Mark, Sarah, and their friends intertwined with the fate of Whispering Pines, each a thread in the larger tapestry of the forest's ancient and unfathomable designs. The narrative pauses here, on the brink of an event unseen in centuries, the outcome uncertain, the forest's appetite for fear and wonder unabated. The tale of Whispering Pines remains open, a doorway to endless possibilities, where every shadow hides a story, and every story is a path into the heart of darkness, waiting, ever waiting, for the next soul to dare its depths. As the convergence within Whispering Pines reached its crescendo, the very air seemed to thicken, suffused with an otherworldly energy. The forest, a living, breathing entity, trembled with anticipation, its every leaf and branch attuned to the rituals that were about to redefine the boundary between the known and the unknowable. The gathering storm. Above the forest, clouds swirled as if painted by a mad artist, their colors unnatural, shifting between the deep purples of bruised flesh and the sickly greens of decay. Lightning forked, not striking the earth, but weaving around the trees, caressing them, feeding them with raw, primal energy. The thunder that followed spoke in the ancient tongue of the forest, a voice that promised change and chaos. Jenny's crucible. In the heart of the mirror labyrinth, Jenny faced her final trial. The entity, a silhouette of pure darkness, now revealed its true form, a Malic amalgam of all the fears and nightmares that had ever haunted the edges of human consciousness. It spoke of a gateway that Jenny could open, a bridge between worlds that would grant her unimaginable power, but at the cost of her humanity. Around her, the mirrors shattered, their shards floating in the air, reflecting not the world she knew, but countless others, each a realm of horrors and wonders beyond comprehension. Mark's union. Mark, now more a part of the forest than himself, stood at the edge of the abyss. His consciousness expanded beyond the limits of flesh and bone. He saw the roots of the forest intertwining with the fabric of reality, each thread a lifeline to another world, another possibility. The abyss beckoned him to step forward, to accept his place as a guardian of the gateway, a being of both shadow and light, whose very existence would be a dance on the knife edge between creation and oblivion. Sarah's ascension. Bound to the ancient altar, Sarah felt the power of the forest coursing through her, the shadows enveloping her in an embrace that was both terrifying and exhilarating. The tome before her glowed with a fierce, dark light, its pages turning faster now, blurring into a whirlwind of shadow. The spirits of the ancient worshippers joined in a chant that rose above the storm, a hymn of rebirth and transformation. As the final words left her lips, the ground beneath her cracked, a brilliant column of dark energy shooting upwards, piercing the storm above, signaling the birth of a new power in the heart of Whispering Pines. The unseen witness. Amidst the chaos, a figure watched from the shadows, its form obscured, its intentions unknown. This unseen witness, a silent observer to the unfolding events, held in its grasp the potential to sway the balance, to alter the outcome of the rituals in ways unforeseen by the forest or its acolytes. As the storm raged above and the ground trembled below, the fate of Whispering Pines hung in the balance. The actions of Jenny, Mark, Sarah, and the unseen witness converging in a moment that would define the threshold between the world of light and the domain of shadows. The story holds its breath here, at the precipice of an unknown dawn. The forest's hunger unabated. Its whispers a seductive call to those who dare to listen. The tale of whispering pines remains veiled in shadow, a narrative of terror and wonder forever unfolding, its darkest chapters yet to be written. In the tempestuous heart of whispering pines, as the rituals reached their zenith, the fabric of reality itself seemed to warp, bending to the will of the ancient forest. The storm above, now a maelstrom of otherworldly energy, cast the forest into a realm of twilight, where shadows danced with a life of their own, and the air pulsed with the power of untold worlds colliding. The unraveling veil. Beneath the storm's eye, the ground of whispering pines split, fissures spreading like a spiderweb, each crack a doorway to realms unknown. From these rifts, energies unfathomable seeped into the world, twisting the forest into shapes grotesque yet mesmerizing. A landscape that defied the laws of nature and reason. Jenny's dilemma. Surrounded by the shattered remains of the mirror labyrinth, Jenny stood at the crossroads of destiny. The entity, now a myriad of voices, offered her a choice: to become the keeper of the gateway, wielding power over the fabric of reality, or to reject this destiny and watch as the forest consumed not just her world, but all worlds. The shattered mirrors around her no longer floated, but spun. A vortex that threatened to pull her into the void between worlds. Mark's transformation complete. Mark, on the brink of the abyss, felt his humanity slipping away, his essence merging with the abyss itself. He became the sentinel, his eyes the windows to the myriad paths that lay beyond, his voice the echo of the forest's will. The abyss, under his gaze, shimmered with a spectral light, each pulse a heartbeat of the forest, each beat a step closer to the convergence of all realities. Sarah's sacrifice. At the ancient altar, Sarah's transformation reached its climax. The dark energy that had shot into the sky now descended, a column of pure shadow enveloping her. The spirits around her bowed, their chant a solemn dirge. The tome, its pages a blur, settled on a final passage, a prophecy that spoke of a guardian born from shadow, destined to stand at the forest's heart, a protector and a destroyer in equal measure. The unseen witness revealed, as the forest and its chosen acolytes embraced their fates, the unseen witness stepped from the shadows, its form ever changing, a being of neither light nor dark, this arbiter of fates, a custodian of the balance between worlds, observed the transformations and the burgeoning power within whispering pines with inscrutable motives. It whispered a single word, a name that held the power to unravel or to mend the fabric of reality. Its voice carrying through the storm, reaching the ears of Jenny, Mark, and Sarah, binding them in a shared destiny yet to be understood. The precipice of dawn. As the first light of a new dawn threatened to break through the storm, the forest of whispering pines stood on the brink of a new era, a threshold between epochs. The rituals had awakened something ancient, a force that transcended the boundaries of the forest, a whisper in the darkness, promised to reshape the world in its image. The story lingers here in the shadow of a dawning age, the fate of Whispering Pines and its acolytes woven into a narrative that stretches into the unknown, a tale of darkness and light, of sacrifice and power, forever waiting, ever unfolding, for the next chapter to be written in the heart of the forest. As the new dawn's light struggled to penetrate the tumultuous clouds swirling above Whispering Pines, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath, caught in the grip of an ancient anticipation. The energies unleashed during the night's rituals pulsed through the gnarled roots and twisted branches, a silent, vibrating call that resonated with the hidden corners of the world. The forest's heartbeat, deep within the forest, where the oldest trees whispered secrets in a language lost to time, a heartbeat echoed, slow and deliberate. The ground itself throbbed with this heartbeat, sending ripples across the forest floor, distorting reality in waves that made the air shimmer like a mirage. This heartbeat, synchronized with the pulsating energies of the abyss and the altar, became the metronome for the unfolding symphony of chaos and creation. Jenny's vision. Amidst the remnants of the mirror labyrinth, Jenny, now standing at the vortex's edge, was caught in a maelstrom of visions. Each reflection in the spinning shards of glass showed her different outcomes, different worlds where the forest's power spread like a dark tide, consuming or transforming everything in its wake. But among these visions, one showed a glimmer of hope, a world where the forest's hunger was balanced with the world beyond, a delicate harmony that required a guardian to maintain. Mark, the sentinel. Mark, fused with the essence of the abyss. His human form, now a mere silhouette against the spectral glow of the chasm, watched over the myriad paths that branched out into the unknown. His consciousness, expanded beyond mortal comprehension, grappled with the duality of his existence, both a part of the forest and apart from it, a guardian of thresholds that were never meant to be crossed. Sarah's awakening. The column of shadow that had enveloped Sarah receded, revealing her transformed. Her eyes, now pools of liquid darkness, reflected the myriad spirits that had borne witness to her ritual. The ancient altar, cracked and worn by the energies it had channeled, stood as a testament to her sacrifice. She rose, her every movement echoed by the shadows that clung to her, a dance of dark flames that whispered of power and protection. The arbiter's game, the unseen witness, revealed to be an arbiter of fates, watched the new guardians of Whispering Pines with an inscrutable gaze. It held in its hands the threads of potential futures, weaving them into a tapestry that spanned the cosmos. Its presence, neither benign nor malevolent, suggested a game of cosmic proportions, with rules known only to it, and the forest and its acolytes were but pieces on a board that stretched beyond the veil of reality. The echoes of Whispering Pines. As the storm above began to dissipate, the echoes of the night's events reverberated through the forest and beyond. The balance of power had shifted, and the veil between worlds thinned, allowing the whispers of Whispering Pines to reach far corners of the earth, calling to those who harbored a curiosity for the unknown, a hunger for the forbidden. The narrative hovers here, in the aftermath of a night that altered the essence of Whispering Pines. The destinies of Jenny, Mark, and Sarah irrevocably intertwined with the ancient heart of the forest. The story, like the forest, is alive, a living entity that grows and evolves, its shadows deepening, waiting for the next soul to tread its hidden paths, the tale ever unfolding, a whisper in the dark that beckons the brave, the lost, and the mad to discover its secrets. In the aftermath of the convergence, Whispering Pines was no longer just a forest. It had become a nexus, a point where the fabric of reality was so delicately woven that even the slightest touch could send ripples through the dimensions. The guardians, Jenny, Mark, and Sarah, now stood as sentinels over this fragile balance, their every action echoing in the hidden corridors of reality. The shattered veil, the events of the convergence, had left scars in the veil between worlds, scars that pulsed with a dark energy, attracting beings of shadow and light, creatures that existed in the spaces between the ticks of a clock. These entities, drawn by the forest's power, began to seep through the cracks, their intentions as varied as their bizarre forms. Some curious, others malevolent. Jenny's challenge. Jenny, the keeper of the gateway, faced the daunting task of navigating the influx of interdimensional beings. Her once clear path was now a labyrinth of moral and existential dilemmas, each decision affecting not only the forest, but the very fabric of reality itself. Among the entities that approached her was a being of pure light, its form ever-changing, offering her a glimpse into the infinite possibilities that lay beyond her control, tempting her with the promise of understanding and power at the cost of her bound duty to maintain balance. Mark's vigil. Mark, now the sentinel of the abyss, found his consciousness stretched across the thresholds of worlds, a guardian against the tide of darkness that threatened to spill forth. The abyss, once a chasm of darkness, now shimmered with the light of 1,000 stars, each star a world, a story, a potential calamity. His challenge came in the form of a dark entity, a shadow that moved against the flow of time, seeking to use the abyss to unravel the threads of destiny itself. Sarah's covenant tested. Sarah, bound to the ancient altar, felt the weight of her new role as the forest's heart, her every heartbeat a pulse of dark energy that sustained the balance. The spirits that had once guided her now looked to her for guidance, their whispers a cacophony of advice and warnings. A rift formed near the altar, a tear in the world that led to a place of silence and oblivion, challenging Sarah's resolve and her understanding of her role as both protector and destroyer. The Arbiter's Gambit. The Arbiter, the unseen witness to the convergence, now revealed its role more openly, its form a constant flux of shadow and light, reflecting the dual nature of the game it played. It presented the Guardians with a choice, a gambit that could either seal the scars in the veil or tear them wide open, a decision that held the potential for salvation or doom. Whispers in the shadows. As the new guardians of Whispering Pines grappled with their roles and the challenges that faced them, the forest itself began to change. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and within the shadows, eyes watched, ancient and knowing, something old, something that had slumbered through the ages, stirred in the depths of the forest. Its awakening tied to the guardians' fates and the choices they would make. The story pauses here, on the cusp of a new chapter in the tale of Whispering Pines. The guardians standing on the brink of decisions that could alter the course of worlds. The forest, alive with ancient power and new threats, waits with bated breath for the next twist in its ever-evolving narrative. A tale of darkness, light, and the fragile line that separates them. Ever waiting, ever whispering for the next soul to walk its shadowed paths. In the shadow-drenched heart of Whispering Pines, the guardians stood at the edge of a precipice, their decisions echoing in the silence that followed the storm's fury. The forest, now a confluence of energies from realms beyond comprehension, throbbed with a life of its own. Its whispers, a tapestry of voices from both the living and the entities that had seeped through the shattered veil. The gathering of shadows, as night once again enveloped the forest. A congregation of shadows formed in the clearing where the ancient tree stood, its branches stretching towards the sky like gnarled fingers. The entities that had answered the forest's call circled the tree, their forms shifting, blending with the darkness. Their intentions as varied as the stars above. Among them, a figure shrouded in a cloak of night, its eyes glowing with an eldritch light, spoke of a covenant older than time, a pact that could either bind the wounds of the world or tear them further asunder. Jenny's pact. Jenny, amidst the sea of shifting realities, reflected in the remnants of the mirror labyrinth, found herself confronted by the cloaked figure. It offered her a pact, sealed with a fragment of her own soul, a piece that would serve as a key to the gateways, granting her control over the comings and goings of the entities. But this control came at a price. A piece of her tethered to the very fabric of the forest, making her a part of its endless cycle of hunger and rebirth. Mark's burden. Mark, the sentinel. His awareness stretched across the abyss, sensed a disturbance, a ripple that threatened to unspool the delicate balance he guarded. The cloaked figure approached him, its presence a cold void that sucked at the light of the stars within the abyss. It offered him knowledge, the secrets of the abyss's true purpose, and the origins of the forest's dark heart. But this knowledge would anchor him further to his post, a warden chained to the threshold between light and darkness. Sarah's choice. At the heart of the forest, Sarah felt the pull of the rift near the altar. Its silent call, a siren song that tempted her with glimpses of oblivion. A place where the forest's endless hunger could be sated. The cloaked figure, appearing before her, offered a solution, a way to harness the rift's power to strengthen the forest's heart, ensuring its survival. But this power demanded a sacrifice, a relinquishing of the last vestiges of her humanity, binding her soul to the forest's pulsating dark core. The Arbiter's warning. The Arbiter, a being of balance, watched the unfolding events with a gaze that pierced the veils of reality. It appeared to each guardian, its form a mirror of their deepest fears and desires, warning them of the cloaked figure's true nature and the consequences of the choices before them. It spoke of a balance that must be maintained, not just within the forest, but across all realms. A balance that the cloaked figure sought to upset for its own unfathomable ends. The forest's whisper, as the guardians pondered their choices, the forest itself seemed to whisper. Its voice a chorus of the countless souls it had consumed, of the ancient spirits bound to its soil. It spoke of a coming storm, not of rain and wind, but of realities colliding, of the thinning veil that could either become a bridge or a battleground. The narrative holds here, in the heart of Whispering Pines, where the guardians stand at a crossroads, their decisions capable of altering the very essence of the world. The forest, ancient and insatiable, waits with bated breath, its shadows deep and alive with anticipation, its story an endless weave of darkness and light, awaiting the next turn of the page, the next whisper in the night that will carry its tale forward. Under the cloak of night, the atmosphere within Whispering Pines grew denser, the air charged with the mingled scents of earth and something more arcane, a fragrance that whispered of hidden depths and ancient rites. The guardians, each ensnared by their own dilemmas, felt the weight of their impending decisions like a physical shroud, heavy with the potential of irrevocable consequences. The veiled assembly, the clearing, bathed in the ethereal glow of the ancient tree, became a stage for the veiled assembly of entities drawn from the rifts. Their forms, some nebulous, others eerily humanoid, flickered like candles in the wind, casting elongated shadows that danced across the forest floor. At the heart of this assembly, the cloaked figure stood, its presence a nexus of cold, unfathomable darkness, drawing the guardians towards it with a gravity that was more than physical, a call to the very essence of their beings. Jenny's vision unravels. Jenny, her mind a whirlwind of possible futures and realities, found herself standing at the edge of the clearing, the shards of the mirror labyrinth swirling around her like a storm of glass and light. The cloaked figure approached, its eyes piercing through her defenses, offering visions of worlds saved and worlds doomed. Each vision a thread in the complex tapestry of choices she faced. With each step it took, the ground beneath her feet seemed to shift, the forest around her bending to its will, a tangible demonstration of the power it promised and the price it demanded. Mark's abyssal echoes. Mark, his essence intertwined with the abyss, felt echoes of ancient, forgotten voices rise from its depths. Each whisper, a seductive promise of freedom from his eternal vigil. The cloaked figure's shadow fell across the abyss, its darkness an echo of the void. But within it, Mark sensed a hunger that mirrored his own, a hunger for knowledge, for understanding, but also a hunger that could consume him, leaving nothing but another shadow bound to the forest's will. Sarah's descent. Sarah, her connection to the forest's heart, now a bond that pulsed with every beat of her own heart, stood before the rift, its silent call growing louder, more insistent, the cloaked figure, its presence a counterpoint to the rift's oblivion, spoke of a path that would allow her to wield the rift's power, to become not just the forest's heart, but its master. But this path was lined with shadows, each one a remnant of the souls the forest had consumed, a reminder of the cost of such power. The Arbiter's silence. As the Guardians faced their trials, the Arbiter's presence faded, its warnings a lingering echo in their minds. Its absence was as palpable as its presence had been, leaving a void that the cloaked figure seemed all too eager to fill. The balance the Arbiter had spoken of was now a tightrope the Guardians walked, each step a choice between light and darkness, between the salvation and damnation of not just whispering pines, but all realities that touched its shadowed heart. The whispering pines. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, the ancient trees standing as silent witnesses to the drama unfolding in their midst. The whispers that had once filled the air were now hushed, as if the very essence of whispering pines awaited the decisions of its guardians, the future a blank page upon which their choices would be inscribed. The narrative lingers here, suspended in the moment before choices become actions, before the paths chosen become paths walked. The tale of whispering pines and its guardians remains open, a story of shadows and light, of ancient powers and the fragile fleeting essence of humanity, ever waiting for the next heart to brave its depths, the next voice to join its chorus of whispers. As the guardians of whispering pines stood at the precipice of their destinies, the forest held in its breath, the assembly of shadows and the Arbiter's silence converging on this singular moment. The choices laid before Jenny, Mark, and Sarah were not just their own, but a reflection of the countless souls entwined with the forest's ancient heart. The Guardian's resolve. Jenny, amidst the swirling shards of possibility, realized that true power lay not in dominion over the gateways, but in understanding them, in maintaining the balance between worlds. She stepped forward, rejecting the cloaked figure's pact, and in doing so, shattered the illusions of control it offered. The shards around her coalesced, forming a mirror not of glass, but of light, reflecting the forest not as it was, but as it could be, a place of balance, a bridge between worlds rather than a barrier. Mark, feeling the pull of the abyss and the dark promises of the cloaked figure, chose to embrace his role as the sentinel, not as a chain, but as a mantle. He recognized that his vigil was not a prison, but a crucial balance point between the darkness and the light. With this realization, the abyss beneath him transformed, becoming a wellspring of knowledge, a beacon guiding lost souls through the dark. Sarah, faced with the rift's silent call and the cloaked figure's temptations, found strength in her bond with the forest. She understood that to wield the rift's power, she need not sacrifice her humanity, but rather embrace it. With a whispered vow, she sealed the rift, not with darkness, but with a light born of her own will, a testament to the forest's capacity for both destruction and renewal. The Arbiter's return. In the moment of their decisions, the Arbiter reappeared, not as a specter of warning, but as a guardian of the balance restored. It acknowledged their choices with a nod, an ancient gesture that spoke volumes in the silence of the forest. The Arbiter then turned to the cloaked figure, now revealed as a harbinger of chaos, a test the Guardians had overcome. With a wave of its hand, the Arbiter banished the figure, not with force, but with a simple realignment of the balance it had sought to disrupt. Whispering Pines renewed. As dawn broke over Whispering Pines, the forest awoke to a new beginning. The ancient trees, the silent witnesses to the Guardians' trials, whispered a new song, one of hope and balance. The rifts that had marred the land healed, leaving behind not scars, but well springs, sources of life that nourished the forest and the myriad creatures within it. The Guardians, their trials behind them, stood together at the heart of the forest, united not just by their shared ordeal, but by a renewed purpose. They were the keepers of balance, the sentinels at the threshold, and the heart of Whispering Pines, bound by their choices to protect the delicate weave of reality that the forest embodied. The legacy continues. As the story of that night passed into legend, Whispering Pines stood as a beacon, a reminder of the delicate balance between darkness and light, chaos and order. The Guardian's tale, woven into the fabric of the forest, became a guide for those who would come after, a testament to the power of choice, the strength of will, and the enduring light of humanity in the face of the shadows. The narrative of Whispering Pines, though culminating in this moment of renewal, remains alive in the rustling leaves, in the gentle whispers of the wind, and in the hearts of those who walk its paths. A story of endless cycles, of nights that will come again, and of guardians who will stand watch, ever vigilant, ever faithful, in the heart of the forest that whispers with the voices of the ages.